Well,
When
and
you're running your offense, on the base stealing side, are you giving, absolute freedom for certain guys to be always in a green light situation? Are they waiting for a steal? Are they waiting for is it, without giving up too much information, is it
Yeah,
a late
no.
signal that you give? Is it straight signs, or is it ultimate freedom is what you want to try to go for?
Three or four guys, they've got the freedom to do it whenever, but they got to be smart about it. So if
Right.
they're, they take a chance and they get out and it's a bad situation, it's a conversation.
Yep.
But I'd rather learn from that than have a kid always looking in saying, "Can I run?" Well, yeah, you can run fast, and you can anticipate, you can read pitchers really well. Yeah, you need to run, and that needs to be part of your game. And I think the threat of just having those kids, everybody knows that this kid Nolan Christ, he'll be a senior for me this year, outfielder, going to Centralia. No one gets on base, he's going to steal. I mean, it's weird if he doesn't, and we'll use a fake steal in there, and sometimes we'll just lull a team to sleep, and not look like we're running, and then all of a sudden off we go, and so there's certain kids that do, there's certain kids that need the sign. We might give
Mm-hmm.
them, hey, you're looking to take a bag within 3 pitches, so based upon the count, and what pitchers are throwing, maybe you get that off speed count, and we preach, dirt ball reads from first base, second base, third base. We practice those weekly. But for the most part, our fast guys have a green light, and then some of those intermediate guys, they're looking for a sign.
Anything like pitcher wise that you look at, or you teach your guys to look at, any types of tips or tells, or maybe what your focus points are? I know we made a switch. We had a coach that ran some base stealing stuff for a couple years back, Andy Forgione. And we made a switch to looking at shoulders. I know a lot of guys look at
Mhm.
feet as
Mhm.
far as when a pitcher first move goes, and you're susceptible to that balk move that
Sure.
never really gets called, whether a kid knows he's doing it or not. But we started taking the feet out of it and didn't miss a beat, right? So you're looking at the shoulders, the front shoulder move in, usually a tall guy, a front shoulder move down because they got to work downhill. But are there maybe some specific elements that you're teaching guys to look for to get a better jump? Or you just, if the times are good, whether catcher pitcher combined, are you just looking to hopefully get a decent enough jump, knowing that a
Right.
leg time and a pop time, and you're going to be safe anyways? But
Right.
maybe some of those specific elements that you're teaching them, or having them
Right.
focus on.
Right. Yeah. Nothing earth breaking. I mean, you're looking at time to the plate plus pop time. So you have a general idea there. You're looking at, does he always throw in the same rhythm? At first base, is he always, we use the UCLA count. That's how we count it. So is he always delivering on a C? And if so, we can anticipate that C coming. But you're right. Tall guys, you're looking for that top shoulder. Some guys are hip heavy. They'll drop their hip, slide their hip towards the plate when they're going, whereas they'll stand up straight when they're coming back. So, generally speaking, we keep track of it with our pitchers in the league. The Lewiston pitchers, the Lake City pitchers, the Post Falls pitchers. We have a pretty good idea of what they look like, from first base. We have a pretty good idea of what they look like from second base. And so obviously there's some things that some guys do that we tell our runners beforehand, hey, look, this kid's pitching this day, this game, and here's what to look for when you're on first base. Some guys are really good, and you just, you might have to shut it down, shut down the running game, or look for, delay steal opportunities or whatever it might be. But, it's great for our base runners, but it's also great for our pitchers too, because they're starting to think about, oh, what am I doing? And so our base runners during practice, during inter squads, they're telling, some of these pitchers will come in, especially the young guys, and they're like, in one inning, there are 3 stolen bases on me. What was I doing? And then our guys will talk to them, and then, and slowly, how baseball is, you work it out, you work out the patterns with your teammates and pick up on stuff. We've got guys in the dugout that all they're doing is watching pitchers, and they're recording times, that's their job and their role for that particular inning of that day. So, yeah, I mean, you take all those things into account.
Love it.
Well, that's the iron sharpens iron on that in practice. That's fun. That's
100%. And, and then the great thing about, having these seniors do this off-season stuff is they've already got that buy-in from the younger kids. Younger kids are already looking up to them and learning from them and picking up on the language that these older kids are using and asking questions. It's a lot easier for a freshman or a sophomore or a young varsity kid to ask their teammate than it is for them maybe to ask a coach. As much as we try to make ourselves available and welcoming to the kids, sometimes it's just easy to have that conversation with your teammate.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, with the, our in-game adjustments and the philosophy of our offense. And I guess the way I like to describe this to our guys is when we have our offensive installment meeting is what I call it early on.
Okay.
And we talk to them about Friday night guys, right? Mm-hmm. Friday night guys have all the radar guns. He's probably pitching for Tri-Cities Prep, and Jason has them for game one. And but we got the Friday night guy that we're gonna have to have great at bats. We're gonna have to have discipline, get on base, bunt, steal, all that kind of stuff. But then we have games that we're gonna come into, and we're gonna have to swing it, and we're gonna have to hit. Whether it's a game we just need to put away early and get to the fifth and get out of there, or it's just a team we're gonna, And so when you get to that point, and maybe that particular day, one way might not be working, but getting your offense transition mid-game, how do you get your guys to make those adjustments?
Sure.
On the fly.
Yeah. So we try, when you talk about like early season stuff, we try to put in our inner squads, certain situations where, we'll have our good heart of our lineup face our top pitchers, so they see what that looks like. And then we'll bring in a freshman or a sophomore and throw to those guys. And then that adjusts it. So we try as much as we can in practice to work on situations. You can't replicate some of the arms that we see. There's in our league, there's good pitching. I mean, it's just solid. And you're going to see a variety of pitching. You're going to see guys that are 88 to 90. With hard sliders, and then you're going to see guys that are 68 to 72 with nothing but junk. And so it does change, and it might change not just, middle of the game. It might change. You might see 4 or 5 pitchers in a game. And, by seeing these kids over and over and over again, over a period of time, we've got a pretty good feel of how we're going to approach the game, and try to execute the game, as much as we possibly can. So try not to, I'm real big on keeping it simple as much as possible. I mean, you could take baseball to the nth degree analytically and just get in over your head. But I think sometimes you freeze a little bit when you start thinking too much. When a kid comes back into the dugout and they're thinking about the mechanics of the swing, you don't want that. We want to know essentially, and we want you communicating, how are you pitched to? How did they attack you? And then prior to the next at bat, how did they attack you last time? So now we're thinking about maybe we're going to see this again, or maybe we're going to see something different, but I don't want them thinking too much. When it's game day, it's time, we've done the practice, right? We've done the preparation. I want them just out performing and feeling free to perform. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, but there's always something that, adjustment wise that seems like we're always making. And I'll tell you too, the weather plays a huge factor in that. It's a lot easier to run when the ground is hard versus when it's not. Bunting can be, really troublesome for some pitchers getting off the mound when that grass is wet, and you might see us try to get down 4 or 5 drags in a game, safety squeezes. I mean, just all that stuff. It just kind of changes depending upon not just who you're facing, but also the weather and the conditions you're playing in.
Yeah.
Yeah. We see them all. We see them all in this area. Yeah, you got to take advantage of the things that you can't control and be the best team at it, right? Because oftentimes there's teams that can't handle it and maybe don't practice. We talked about, Erik mentioned that, how it's important to get out in the conditions sometimes and be able to be in it and motivate kids. It's going to be potentially worse than this when it matters at some point in time. I know Jason battled the weather last year a little bit and had to chase it, and ended up working out in his favor, but they could have been playing in puddles if adjustments didn't get made at the end there.
Right.
And that is so true too, because I mean, you think about it, you can't just tell opponent, hey, we're just not going to play today because it's 28 degrees outside.
Yeah.
We just that's just the Pacific Northwest. The luxury as a coach, you can put as many layers of clothing you want, and you can put the heated gloves on and the long underwear and all those kind of things. As a player, you got to do what you can best do, but you got to understand this is your time, and when the sun does come out and it does get a little bit warmer, it does make things a lot easier, but that's the joys of playing in the Pacific Northwest. Really, it's just that's why we always are. The players up here are a lot more just those grinders. Every coach college or every college coach wants. Every guy that Kelly's looking for. So
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You're used to playing and whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
That and talking more about your offensive stuff, and it's something that I've been going. We don't have the numbers that the bigger schools do to do this stuff, but is it a daily you set a certain amount of time for game-like situations within your offense and defensive strategy? Is it focused daily, or you a couple times a week, or?
Yeah, early on it is. Early on, through March, through spring break, and typically I've got my JVs practicing with my varsities and, rolling in. This year we'll have all three teams practicing on the same site. Some will be down in our new facility hitting. Two teams will be up on the field. Maybe one team's working defense, one team's working offense. Again, you just maximize your time with those kids and really try to establish the foundations. And then after spring break, when you're playing 2 double headers a week, and we're driving down to Lewiston and getting home at 11 o'clock at night, that next day, typically I'm just giving them a day off because they just need rest. And so it's a little bit more of Band-Aid issues. We notice certain things that aren't being executed well. Those are the things that are going to be practiced once we get into the heart of April and we get into the work that needs to be done in order to win those games, those elite games, as we make our way towards the district tournament. But certainly in March, as much as we can get outside, we really try to emphasize, this is how we're going to play the game. And this is how we're going to play the game with 2 strikes. This is how we're going to play the game when we're up by 7. This is how we're going to play the game when we're chasing runs, and just as much inter squad as possible. And again, some years it's great. Some years the weather doesn't cooperate, but do our best.
And is it a lot? Because I'm thinking about all the stuff you're talking about. I'm like, God, we're all the same. We're all the same thing here, right? It's just different scales and different stuff. But, do you find, is it sitting down with your team in a meeting to communicate these things? Is it a lot of just do it on the fly? I know there's sometimes I try to meet with our guys, explain what we're going to do, and then we go out and do it. There's sometimes they look at me like, shut up, let's just go play. Right. Yeah, so what's having that balance, and how do you guys go about that?
It's a hard one because they've been sitting in class for 7 hours, you know, and I don't know if you guys notice this. I've been teaching now for 25 years, and it's not that the kid has really changed too much, but certainly that attention span has definitely changed. So yeah, I get exactly what you're saying there, Eric. It's like, sometimes I just have a sense. I can say 2 sentences, and that's all it's going to go through the ears today and get ready. And then there's sometimes where the attention's there and the focus is there. It's funny. I mean, every day you never know what you're going to get with a bunch of teenage boys. It can be pretty inconsistent there. I just try to be as consistent as possible in my demeanor towards them and how we approach things from a communication perspective. Yeah.
Well, Coach, let's kind of shift to the other side of the field here on the defensive side. What are some of the things that you guys have implemented into your practice plan that you see really work? Is it more chaos type things, machines, maybe certain things that uniquely we have to do up in the PNW here? Dealing with weather. It's kind of tough to catch fly balls on a foot of snow unless you put some snow tracks on and say, get after it, boys. So what are some of the things that you guys do there at Coeur d'Alene?
Sure. Yeah. Again, nothing groundbreaking. We'll always start with individual defensive drills. We have a certain set that we'll do on this day. We'll have a certain set that we'll do on the next day. But we try to be consistent with the basics. Infield, outfield play, pitchers, we try to run PFPs 2 to 3 times a week. We'll incorporate that all into, with base runners, early on. What works best for me and for our teams, I think, is being as simple and as structured as possible. So, Erik talked earlier about, taking those leads. That's the first step, right? This is how we're going to take a lead. And now here's how we're going to get our extensions. And here's what we're looking for now to steal. And really, so early in the season, especially, with a variety of different backgrounds of baseball players, you want to make sure you're all on the same page, and it's as small little chunks, and then put the chunks together. So I don't like to go straight into that chaos stuff early in the season with the base runners and putting kids in high stressful situations when the footwork's not right or they're not sure. Cuts and relays, we'll start out with just basic cuts and relays. We'll just move guys without throwing baseballs. Eventually we'll start throwing baseballs, and then eventually we'll start putting some base runners in different situations. Really try to build it up to the point where each new step, if a kid's learning it for the first time, each new step, he's got a chance to be successful in learning it. And then we add another challenge, trying to keep them, not overwhelmed with the challenge, but certainly in that range where there's enough of it that I'm motivated to learn.
How do you manage when you have maybe an older, younger team? Just does your plan differ at all when maybe you have a group of older guys that have gone through it that you can advance? You can advance a little bit further with them. You don't want to hold them back and maybe rely on, if you have a young guy, that your older guys are going to bring them along faster. Maybe how do you manage that based on the team that you have?
Sure. Yeah. And that's how it is year to year, right? Last year we had a big group of seniors. This year I've got 3, 4 seniors, maybe 5 seniors on the roster. So a lot of young guys having to step up. And again, the beauty of that off-season stuff is those older guys are taking the young guys by the wings and building that trust and building that relationship with them. So that when we do get to the season, those old guys, they know what they're doing. And they're out there, and I've got 3 or 4 other coaches out there in addition to the 3 or 4 coaches that are already out there. And I try to, put a young guy, maybe a JV shortstop with my varsity shortstop. And those guys are running and talking, and my varsity guy knows, hey, I got to be communicating with this. And some of those guys are, they can be a little resistant to, like, I just want to do my thing. I don't want to, but we preach, you're leaving this program better than you left it or than you started it. And this is your way of giving back to the program and giving back to baseball. And so, those young guys, they catch up to speed pretty quick. And where there's issues, I've learned that you got to pull those kids aside and say, hey, look, what's going on? Why aren't you listening to this kid? Or, is there some friction or some issue? And so generally speaking, our old guys do a pretty good job of bringing the young guys along. And I think that's a benefit of practicing with our, the 2 teams, the freshmen JVs and JVs practicing with the freshmen. You just get a continuity in your program that I think, helps you over the long term. That culture is built in and that's continued even though the kids' faces may change.
Absolutely. Well, what are some of your favorite drills? I know that we always have a list of them, right? And it's making sure that they're going to be fresh and up to date and keeping things fresh when the season's later on.
Sure.
And making kids, let's say complacent's the right word for there, but keeping things moving, right?
Right. So outfielders, we love doing quarterback drills. Working our footwork, getting our reads. Kids obviously love chasing that down without a glove. It turns into a big competition for them. So those quarterback drills are great. Just first step movements, that sort of thing. Infielders, we've got a set of individual stuff that we do on the daily. I do a lot of, ball and glove sort of drills where a kid will start with the ball. They'll go through the fielding motion, the field work motion, make the throw across, different arm slots. Love doing that stuff. We do, we try to do as much when we're doing our infield work, as much glove work as we can. We're doing as much feeding, double plays, different double plays. Love hitting the ball around on the infield, going through different situations, 5-4-3 double plays, whatever it might be. Catchers, I've got a great catching coach, who takes those kids across and challenges the heck out of them, and is tough as nails. And he does a lot of stuff catching wise that, he learned in college and he learned playing professionally. And so, I'm just fortunate. I got a lot of guys that know a lot about baseball and we're able to get a lot of variability, I guess, in terms of our practice, but there's consistency, if that makes sense to you, where it's not the same thing day to day to day.
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance machines or constriction or constraints and stuff like that? Are you using machines on the daily? Do you like to use constraints, whether stopwatch or plays in a row or maybe, challenges to where that kind of stuff? What are your kind of your favorite things to do there?
Yeah, infield work, when we have base runners, even if we don't, we'll give a base runner maybe a 5-foot lead, and then it's less than 4 seconds trying to field it and get it across, or maybe we'll put a guy 5 feet behind the plate. So that mimics slow runner, and we got a little bit more time, so we can be a little bit more, just a little slower in terms of our footwork, getting our throw in. When we go down, we do use a machine. Because I can throw BP and I can dot it pretty well for about an hour, and after that, it might take me 3 or 4 days to recover from that. We've got a couple of machines. We got a jugs machine, a 3-wheel jugs machine that we just purchased, and so like tonight, the guys had it cranked up to 85 right-handed cutters, and they're just working on one swing, seeing one, and it dots. I mean, it's a fantastic little machine, and so we're really able to challenge them. We try to talk about that your goal in practice is to challenge yourself. It's not to feel comfortable. Get used to not feeling comfortable and working on these things. So we use the machine all the time. Like I said, we use the foam balls out in the weather. We got driveline balls and they spin really well. We use our little hack attack machine out there and really try to put those guys in seeing pitches, seeing stuff that they'll never see in a game, right? So that then when they step into the plate, okay, I've seen faster than this, or I've seen better movement than this, and have that level of comfort. And I just can't do it with an old right-handed arm, and my assistant coaches can't do that either. But we do try to throw off a mound when we do throw live. We'll take on-field BP. We have a variety of different BPs that we use. Some are machines, some are me throwing. It just depends on the day and kind of what the needs are.
We love that. What are kind of some absolutes infield wise? You mentioned you spend some time with the infield, but what are kind of your points of emphasis? Maybe things that you find policing the most. How do you want them to look for them as far as infielders?
Yeah. So, you get a young guy, a young athletic kid that's always kind of been the shortstop, right? He gets to the varsity field and he's still a good athlete, but maybe his feet stop. Maybe he doesn't move in momentum. He doesn't gain the momentum towards first base on the throw. So that seems to be kind of like the big issue that a lot of these really athletic kids have, that I see, as coming in as juniors, seniors, is just their footwork, their movement towards the bag that they're throwing to. So we do a lot of work with that, a lot of work with just slow ground balls or short fungo, where we're just hitting two, and we're really working on, I don't want to say like the old 3-cone drill, but we're really working on getting around a baseball, fielding on the left side and stepping through and then following your throw. I mean, there's just so much that kids just maybe don't pay attention to that has to become in a way unconscious to them. Because their unconscious habits have worked for them, at the younger levels, but then you get them into the high school level, and now you got a guy that runs down, first base, and he's there in a hurry. And if you're flat-footed, you're throwing the ball away, and that leads to disaster, right? So we do a lot of footwork drills. A lot of kids on ladders in the off season. I've got them out, and you'll see my infielders running different sets on ladders. They're doing speed ropes, doing stuff like that to just increase the athleticism.
And I think that's a big for, I guess, maybe not everybody, but trying to get our kids to unleash their athleticism and trust themselves to let it go. And I know I scared the heck out of we had an eighth graders be able to play up because we're so small sometimes. And he finally did it, and I just lost it. I was so excited, and I scared the heck out of the kid. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but that was so cool. Keep doing that, right? So, trying to encourage your kids to unleash their athleticism. I mean, talk us through that with your guys.
Yeah, but also, sometimes those good athletes, they feel very comfortable in the patterns that they've already established. But
Mhm.
every level you go up in this game, there's new patterns you got to learn to be successful. It's difficult to throw the ball from third base to first base with a fast runner. You've got to field it on the correct side of the body, and you got to have your momentum in your throw. You've got to throw with the proper arm slot. And so you get a lot of these kids and they're dropping their arms, from third base with the ball hit directly at them, or, they're not charging balls, so we work on hops and how to read hops. All that stuff this game takes a level of mental commitment as much as it does physical commitment. So when you get those natural athletes, sometimes it's not an issue, but oftentimes what I found is they feel real comfortable being a natural athlete, but then the footwork's not there, the arm, the stroke isn't there, and so it becomes really difficult to put them on the left side of that infield.
Right.
Yeah. And I think too, coach, is creating that creativity at practice, right? I mean, don't be stagnant and just kind of doing it. And that's out there listening to us, is that, just
lost him.
He's still freezing. Jason's having all sorts of problems today. You back, Jason? Well, he'll come back on.
Okay.
Part of that question. Yeah, I think a lot of times we get stuck in things have to be done a certain way, right? If you keep the athleticism piece as the most important element, that stuff's gonna shine. I mean, it's one thing we can't teach. We can't teach athleticism, but the one thing we can teach is athleticism out of a player by putting constraints and chains on what they do. So
correct.
The more we can find the ways that guys can move the best with what they have, right? And finding new ways and creative ways to feel, because there's guys that hinge at the hip better, or are able to play more one-handed or stuff like that, and really working with them too, and making them feel a part of that. Hey, let's try this out because I think you're locked up right now, right? Rather than just being stuck in, oh, it's got to look this way or it's got to do that. We have to do this, but there's absolutes, obviously, but I'm trying to keep them with what they got.
Yeah, and I guess that's also another piece that every year I just continually remind myself, you got to learn from them. You got to learn from them and let them kind of dictate and talk their way through whatever it is that they're working on in practice. And having those conversations and being open to those conversations and just knowing. And sometimes I don't know the answer. I don't know. The kid will come up to me and say, "Hey, I'm really not feeling this drill," and I'll see it a particular way, and I just don't know. So I ask my assistant coaches, or I ask another. The great thing about the baseball community is, unlike some other sports, we're all kind of in the same thing, and it seems like there's just a great camaraderie amongst all of us in terms of helping each other out. When we get into those points, and you're always learning as a coach, and you're always learning as a player, and I think that's an important thing that you got to just you got to demonstrate to the kids, is that, look, we're not stuck doing it this way. We've got other options, and if we don't know the answers, we can find people that know the answers, and to show kids that that's a productive way of living life, I think is one of the great gifts that baseball gives all of us.
Absolutely. Well, it leads me into and we'll get Jason back in here for some.
He's muted, or is he still there? Jason's back.
I'm back.
Jason is so back. Jason is
so back, baby.
A lot of what we do too on the infield end and even outfield end is the defensive positioning side of things. And you mentioned earlier having pretty good record keeping of your area schools, and you probably keep your binders and stuff from years prior. But do you have an overall philosophy of how you want to position your infield and how you want to position your outfield, and where and when did you make adjustments based on the information that you have on an opponent?
Sure. So, there's typically 3 or 4 league games, right? I don't know that, when we play Seattle Prep on March 9th, I really don't know much about his hitters. I know a lot about the Gonzaga Prep hitters because I coach with Munhall in the fall, and so I've seen those kids. But league games for sure. There's typically 3 or 4 kids that, the night before as a coaching staff, we're talking, how are we pitching this kid today, tomorrow. And then based upon those decisions, we're going to set up our defense in a particular way. And we just communicate that. Generally speaking, I'm going to communicate that through my center fielder and my shortstop. Those are the 2 guys that I count on to make those in-game adjustments. I don't like to shift guys in the middle of an at-bat because I don't like to give away, if a kid's paying attention or another coach is paying attention, I don't like to give away where we're going to end up throwing you. But my, some of my outfielders, they'll see, they're really good about knowing what pitch is coming. And then that from that distance, they can make a quick adjustment to the left or to the right or up or down, whatever it might be. So, defensive positioning with those 3 or 4 hitters per team was pretty much set prior to, and then it's also based upon a feel of the game and seeing a swing from some of those hitters that we don't know, as to where we're going to end up playing them. So we might start, a right-handed hitter, we might start him on the pull side, and discover that really it's not going to happen for him. So mid-game, we might shift him when he comes up a little bit more to the non-pull side. And so we make those adjustments kind of on the fly as we see hitters that we don't know as well.
Do you find yourself in the camp of willing to give up something to get something? Are you willing to take risks, or are you more cautious about leaving something open that could be exploded for something bigger? Is it situational? What's kind of your general feel there?
I mean, like everything, there's no absolutes to it. The game's kind of dictating. If I'm chasing runs, in a tight game, then, it's a little bit different than if we're up a lot of runs.
Right.
If we're up a lot of runs, we're going to play a little bit more straight up, and we're going to give up a run or 2 because I know I'm going to get those runs back, by where we position our defense. We do try to make 2-strike adjustments. Our guys kind of understand that, kind of how we're going to pitch most guys with 2 strikes. And so we'll make some shifts to one side or the other. Maybe have the pull outfielder remain in place, whereas the center field and the non-pull side, we're having to move in a little bit because we know how we're going to pitch that guy with 2 strikes. But for the most part, the game's kind of dictating how much we're willing to give up versus how much we're not willing to give up, but, all in all, I try to, like I said, we're basically game planning our pitching sequence for 3 or 4 hitters on a team. And then, we're just kind of seeing the other swings because those are all new kids to us anyways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. I love it.
Well, Coach, I can't express how much fun, and I'm actually I'm enjoying this winter break, but I'm fired up, ready for March to get here. Just having this conversation with you tonight on the podcast. Yeah, no doubt. I really appreciate it. A lot of fun for me too. And, like I said, it's coaching baseball is it's just great. I mean, we get to know each other and get, the number of friendships I've made in my life through just baseball and coaching, and just, get into we're going to go we try to get over to the Washington State Baseball Coaches Association. We're going to get over there again this year, and just meeting new guys and kind of getting a feel. And, when I play you, I want to kick your rear end, but outside of that, we can sit down and enjoy our friendship. It's the type of thing that baseball kind of, brings. Absolutely.
Amen.
That's well
so
put.
True.
That's well put. Well, Coach, I came fired up to see you in Ellensburg.
Sounds good.
Well, thank you very much.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks, fellas.
Yep. Jason and Kelly, I'll be right back to wrap this thing up. All right. We're back here to wrap this thing up, and we're going to let Jason go. He's got to go teach a team how to run the picket fence and make sure they don't get caught watching the paint dry, okay?
Absolutely, Coach. You got it.
I'm pretty sure you have to go to a basketball practice.
We're going to run them tonight. It is basketball season. We're only about 9 weeks away from high school season kicking in. I don't know. Kel, what are you, about 3 weeks, 4 weeks from start here? Right?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're getting there, right? Baseball season's right around the corner, guys. All right. Tonight, we had a great time talking to Coach here from Coeur d'Alene, and just talking about the whole idea of just different philosophies. It's so important that we kind of, I was thinking about base running. It's like we take that for granted. We anticipate, a guy hits the ball long, we just think, oh yeah, you just get to that base and the next guy's going to move more. But being aggressive and anticipating to take that additional bag. I mean, I think about, you watch old films from ball players in the early 1930s. I mean, their style of base running is extremely aggressive, and I don't know, I'm starting to see the game starting to get back to that, which is really exciting to watch, because that's why people watch the game. You want some entertainment, you want some excitement, but it also is really neat to see the athleticism of a lot of these kids. And so there was a lot of great things that Coach was talking about tonight. Just different things about dealing with the weather, and up here in the Pacific Northwest, especially, I mean, Tri-Cities doesn't deal as much, but you think about Ellensburg and Coeur d'Alene. I mean, you're dealing with that snow early season, and it's extremely cold, and yeah, you're itching to get out there, but you got to deal with it. It's part of the process, and just hearing Coach talk about ways of getting around it and getting his guys ready for the start of the season and what he's doing. I mean, it was some solid stuff, great information, good food to chew on. But yeah, it was a lot of fun tonight.
Absolutely. Well, Jason, you go teach that basketball team, man. We'll close this thing out. We'll hold down the fort for you.
Absolutely, fellas.
Appreciate
you
Kelly
both.
Go next. Yeah, appreciate it, Jason.
Care. Yep, later.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, I think there's a lot of themes and stuff that we've had from all the guests we've had in the area, and especially the high school coach that's dealing with the weather stuff. I mean, you guys are so tight in your windows as far as getting ready for a season, having full team where you have to push the envelope a little bit more. Don't have the fall season like we do to put a lot of stuff in place to where as long as you're getting reps somewhere, you're still going to be all right. But yeah, there's nothing like getting out on a field and being able to stretch out. That's such a huge advantage, and having those facilities and having that support of a community to be able to step up and give you everything you need is really important. But I definitely think he's got some great ideas, and they've been successful with their aggressiveness and things that they do there. And definitely very organized type guy. You talked about military on staff as well, but has his plan and sticks to it, and not the guy that really gets rattled very often, it seems like. So great guest, and look forward to what's to come.
And the biggest thing I was taking out of that whole thing, and you always preach about guys that have been at programs and building a program, what that truly means. And the fact of, I've seen guys around here that the bigger schools that they have the JV and freshman teams, and those freshman teams might be running bases the entire practice for the first few weeks of the season. But when those guys are juniors and seniors at those programs, they know exactly what needs to be done. And I know we asked quite a few questions about, like, how do you do this? How do you do that? Well, I feel like when you get that point, it kind of, in a way, can run itself, because you have that leadership, you have the things built and in place that those guys have been preached to since day one, maybe even before they got to the high school program. And a lot of fun. I can't wait to hang out with Coach Erik at the coaches clinic here in Ellensburg. And it was fun. I'm glad that one worked out. I'm glad we were able to get him on, not only because it's fun to reach out to other states and have different points of views and how they do things, but it's always good to hear from different people and how they run their programs, and get kids bought in and try to make a difference, teaching them how to win, how to play baseball, and how to be a good person. And what it ultimately comes down to is all those things, right? So big thank you to Coach Karns out of Coeur d'Alene High School. And thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Jason. And we will be back with another great episode here in the next week or so. Feel free to reach out to us, talk to us, let us know how you're thinking. Please like and review our podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And we just want to keep growing this thing, one thing after another. We got a lot of fun things up the sleeve still this winter as we are closing in on Christmas time around the valley. So, or the state, we're closing in on Christmas time here. So it's good stuff. Well, until next time, take care of one another. Please share this podcast, and we will be back with more baseball content. Pacific Northwest Fungo Banter is a part of the Big Country Media Podcast Network. Please go follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. You can also watch our podcast on YouTube. To find us, just search Pacific Northwest Fungo Banter. And a big thank you to our sponsors, Devo Bats and Safeguard out of the Tri-Cities.